Hey guys, this is Paul with VHScollector.com, here to bring you another VHS review, and today we are talking about the 1988 film called Backwoods, released by Cinema Group Home Video. Before we talk about this movie, I have to remind you guys that we have a crowdfunding campaign going on for the rebuilding and expanding of VHScollector.com. We have a lot of data to enter into the database, and we're going to add some cool new features, and it's going to be faster than ever before. And so if you're interested in preserving a piece of our cultural history, check out the details in the link below or the link in the button of this video, and perhaps you'll contribute. So let's talk about Backwoods from Cinema Group Home Video. Now if you look at the cover here, kind of looks like a horror movie, right? It's called Backwoods. I mean, this is always in the horror section of every video store. I first found this movie reading about it in a book. This is another early VHS that I had to track down back in the day. And from the description, it sounded like a backwoods slasher film. Now, this is later in the 80s, 1988, but in the glory days of the slasher film, we had a lot of slasher films that took place in the woods. We had, of course, Friday the 13th and The Burning, and then some more obscure ones like Don't Go Into the Woods. So those kind of flicks. So this definitely comes off as a woods slasher film. But it really isn't. It's more like a thriller. The front reads, "Not since Deliverance has a film been so terrifying." So, you know, it's kind of like that. It's more of like a thriller, and on the spine it says suspense thriller. But most video stores put this in the horror aisle. Now let's take a closer look at this cover. You have a guy screaming, you got a guy caught up in some kind of net, and the title is of course Backwoods, and it's in yellow, which is strange because it looks like it's supposed to be like blood splatter or something, but it's actually yellow splatter. Kind of reminds me of Murder Lust, that title, which is kind of a yellow splatter effect on there. So this cover isn't really outstanding, right? It's not very, it's not gory. It doesn't feel like a slasher film. But when you look at the back, on the top it reads, "Deep in the backwoods, the darkness can kill." That sounds like a slasher film. And then you've got what looks like a forest ranger there with an axe in his chest and some crazy guy sitting Indian style. Well, that scene, or that still frame, is a spoiler for the movie. It's kind of a spoiler. That's the ending of the movie right there. We'll get into it when we discuss the plot, but let's read what the back has to say. "It's a trip of terror when two campers cross paths with a reclusive mountain man named Eben. In the days that follow, the couple is slowly drawn into Eben's dark and troubled world, a world of memories and a secret too hideous to reveal. Intrigued by the mystery, Jamie and Karen wander through the thick woods, gradually coming to realize that someone, slowly and relentlessly, is stalking them. Backwoods is a story of terror and the quest for survival when the odds are low. It's a power-packed story of what loneliness and despair can do to a human being. A desperate, eerie tale. Backwoods packs a wallop of an adventure." Now this synopsis certainly does reference the plot, references the names of the characters, but it kind of does give it a horror twist. It talks about survival, and it's a story of terror and these sort of things. Well, yeah, it is a story of survival, I guess, but a story of terror kind of suggests that it's a horror type movie. The top tagline on the back kind of misleading, certainly. "Deep in the backwoods, the darkness can kill." Well, this movie only has 2 kills in it, I believe, so it's not really a slasher film by that means. The cover also reads in the top corner, "Direct from theatrical release." Now, I can't find any data for this movie being released theatrically. Now, Backwoods is a retitle of the original title, which is Geek, with an exclamation point. And when you watch the movie all the way through, before the credits start, it has the title Geek with a definition of what a geek is. Kind of goes with the ending of the movie. And then when the credits end, it says again the title of the movie, which is Geek. So this was actually released in the UK as Geek, with a really awesome video cover of like a zombie creature with an axe, and it's just an incredible cover, which is so misleading. There's no zombies and there's no massacre in this movie. It's it's nothing like that cover suggests, but the UK was notorious for their cover art during the video nasty era, so it doesn't surprise me that they would kind of market this as a gory zombie slasher type movie. Now this movie was directed by a guy named Dean Crow, and he only made this, another movie 2 years later, and there's another movie there, so he made 3 altogether, but he kind of disappeared. He never really went on to do anything else. He made this movie along with the writer who went on to do the other movies with him, so they were kind of like a team, I guess, but the writer also didn't go on to do anything. So some members of the cast of this movie went on to work on the director's other film, but otherwise nobody really went on to do anything else except for a guy named Brad Armacost. He was in a few other films throughout the years. He's mostly a theatrical actor, but nobody else really had any substantial acting success. The film begins with a couple cycling across Kentucky. They start from the big city, right through the countryside, until they wind up in the woods to set up camp. As they enter the forest, they stop to speak to a forest ranger for advice. For some unknown reason, Karen tells the ranger that the two are brother and sister. It becomes a surprise when later in the film, the two make out and have sex. I assume Karen was joking with the ranger, although I still don't get the joke. The ranger suggests various locations where they can camp to rough it out. Karen, of course, chooses to go exactly where the ranger told them not to. Bad mistake number 1. The next 10 minutes or so involve the two walking their bikes, tying their shoes, walking through the woods, and hanging out by the campfire. During this time, Jamie finds a severed chicken head in the woods. For some reason, he doesn't tell Karen about this, except to ask her if an animal would bite the head off another animal to eat. The next morning, while in their tent, the two are alarmed by gunfire. When they look outside their tent, they find a man in overalls holding a shotgun and standing over a little girl. Jamie's immediate reaction is to run over to help. I would have assumed the man shot the girl and ran for the hills. In fact, when he begins to assist the girl, the man, named Eben, points the gun at Jamie's head. This, of course, isn't enough to scare Jamie and Karen off. In fact, Karen insists that the two accept an offer to have dinner at Eben's house. Bad mistake number 2. They go to the man's home and set up camp in his yard. So much for roughing it. We get a long dinner sequence which includes the two men getting liquored up on moonshine. The next morning, Karen makes mistake number 3 by skinny dipping alone. A deranged hillbilly watches her as she swims, eventually chasing her back to the house. It's then revealed that the deranged hillbilly is William, the son of Eben. We also learn that he's the one who's been biting the heads off the chickens. After the fiasco at the house, Eben and Jamie go hunting while also drinking moonshine. Good combo. Karen stays behind with the small girl and visits William to try to reason with him. Dumb mistake number 4. Meanwhile, Eben reveals to Jamie that William had killed his wife by breaking her neck. This, of course, disturbs Jamie, and he runs back to the house to find Karen. I can't begin to understand why he would have left her at the house in the first place. When Jamie arrives, William is already attacking Karen. When Jamie moves in, William attacks him, bites his neck, and drags him into the woods. While this is all happening, Eben dies of a heart attack. The rest of the film is spent with Karen running from William. In the process, she finds the forest ranger sitting in his truck with an axe in his head. The film then takes an absurd turn when Karen spends probably an hour in real time creating an elaborate trap with fishing cable and hooks while William watches. At this time, I'm thinking, both of these idiots deserve to die. Creating this net would have been mistake number 5, but William actually gets caught in it anyway. While subdued, he is killed by having a road flare shoved into his mouth, akin to Friday the 13th Part 5. In the final shot of the film, we discover that Jamie has become a geek himself and bites the head off a chicken. We never learn what becomes of the small girl left at the house. The movie is just really slow. Not a lot happens. I was surprised to see the flare in the mouth. Kind of reminded me, of course, of Friday the 13th Part 5. But otherwise, there's not a lot here. It also kind of feels like a little bit Luther the Geek. Definitely not nearly as cool and interesting as that movie. It is interesting that it uses that geek reference that movie does. That a geek was a carnival act where a guy would bite the head off a chicken, which is an actual thing that they used to do back in the day. They'd find some crazy guy that would do anything for money. He would actually bite the heads off of chickens. But it's interesting that it was used in this movie and also used in the film Luther the Geek. That makes you wonder, was it changed to Backwoods because of Luther the Geek? I don't remember what year that movie came out. So there it is, guys. Backwoods. It's a pretty boring movie. Nothing happens for the first hour, but at least you get some good scenery. You get a lot of shots of them riding their bikes in the beginning and them walking through the woods and hiking, and you get a lot of stupidity on the part of Karen, and it's one of those movies where you want to scream at the screen saying, don't do that, you're an idiot, don't go there, but they go there. But yeah, a lot of the interesting things that happen are much later in the movie. But yeah, Karen's an idiot. She goes skinny dipping alone in these woods, and she tries to reason with a crazy hillbilly son. She wants to have dinner with a crazy guy with a shotgun, some hillbilly deep in the woods. It just seems incredibly absurd. Poor Jamie has to suffer for it. The twist ending, kind of like a twist or a surprise ending, is kind of interesting, but kind of expected because we didn't really see Jamie die earlier in the movie. Part of me thought that, oh really, are they just gonna have him be dragged off into the woods and we never see him again? But fortunately, he does come back, and I don't understand, why does he turn into a geek now? Is being a geek contagious? Just because he got bit by one geek, this crazy hillbilly son, does he become one now too? It just seems there's no reason for it. Why don't he just leave? I guess, like I said, being a geek is contagious. You get bit, you know, you become one. So if you're interested in horror slash films, you're not going to get a lot out of this. You're really not. There's not much of it in here. One person gets hit with an axe, and then someone gets a flare in their mouth, and that's it. That's really all you're getting. Oh, an old man gets a heart attack, I believe. Not really a murder. Doesn't really feel like a slasher film. So unfortunately, you're not going to get that with this. Cool title. Will it ever be on Blu-ray? Eventually, I'm sure someone will pick it up. Watching it on Blu-ray might be a lot easier or more tolerable than watching this murky print, because at least you could enjoy the nature scenery. So this has been Paul with VHScollector.com. Stay tuned for more reviews. Check out the crowdfunding campaign, and I will see you guys next time. Have a good night.
Oh, Cooney, run up yonder tree. Shake him down, shake him down. Plumb so high the world to see. Shake him down.